Your invisible source of power. Introduction. Before anything becomes visible, it exists, vibrant and alive, in the unseen. Just because your eyes cannot see it, does not mean it is not real. In fact, Florence Scovel Shinn taught that the invisible is not only real, it is the origin of all that you call real. Every event, every breakthrough, every so-called miracle in your life begins not in the external world of effects, but in the internal world of spiritual causes. The world you see is the harvest of seeds planted long before in your thoughts, your words, your beliefs, your prayers. Picture this. You walk into a grand hall lined with doors. Behind each one is a treasure already prepared for you: healing, love, provision, purpose, peace. But the key to each door is invisible. It is forged from faith, shaped by your words, and powered by your understanding of divine law. Florence Scovel Shinn, a pioneer of metaphysical Christianity, called this divine law the game of life. And in her world, you do not win this game through force or effort, but through spiritual alignment. She wrote, "Nothing on the outside happens that did not first happen on the inside. That is not a poetic sentiment, it is a spiritual law. Your external life is the mirror of your internal atmosphere. What you think consistently, what you affirm repeatedly, and what you deeply believe all shape the film of your spiritual life, which then projects into the world you walk through." This audiobook is an invitation to see clearly, at last, to step into your rightful power, not by striving harder in the physical world, but by aligning deliberately with the spiritual forces already working on your behalf. You are not a victim of chance. You are not subject to random chaos. There is an invisible order to your life, and when you cooperate with it, life becomes a flow rather than a fight. The spiritual mechanics of manifestation, not theories or wishes, but exact laws that control how your experience plays out, are what you are going to discover. You will find that every spiritual benefit in the heavens has already been bestowed upon you. What you're looking for is waiting in the spiritual realm of potentiality and is not far away. That trust is the very thing that makes invisible blessings material, not wishful thinking. Florence Scovel Shinn's teachings, though wrapped in the language of her time, contain timeless truths. She taught that life need not be a battle when you understand that the invisible realm is the source of your good. She believed that the right word spoken in the right spirit could dissolve mountains, that gratitude could reroute the currents of your destiny, and that spiritual law is not reserved for saints or mystics, but available to every man and woman who dares to believe. In the pages ahead, you'll be shown how to speak with authority, think with purpose, and act in harmony with the divine. Each chapter will be a doorway. Each truth will be a key. And your journey will not be towards something new, but back to what you've always had, though unseen. For it truly happens spiritually first, and once you understand that, the world is yours. Chapter 1. Spiritual reality comes first. There is a world more real than the one you see, more permanent than stone, more powerful than fire. It is the realm of the spirit, the unseen field from which all things come and to which all things return. Florence Scovel Shinn taught that the spiritual realm is not an abstraction or a metaphor, but the birthplace of every form. And until a man or woman understands this, not merely with the intellect, but with the depth of inner knowing, they will continue to chase shadows, thinking they are substance. The physical world, though rich with beauty and form, is the outpicturing of invisible causes. When you see a tree swaying in the wind, you do not see the wind, but you see its effects. So it is with spirit. You do not see the energy that aligns circumstances, opens doors, shifts people's hearts, and orchestrates perfect timing. But you see the outcome. What most call coincidence or luck is simply the manifestation of a cause long set in motion by the unseen. Florence warned against trying to manipulate effects. She said, "People often look at their conditions and try to change them, but they do not go to the root." And what is the root? It is thought. It is a belief. It is the spiritual pattern behind the physical picture. To rearrange the furniture in a room is one thing. To redesign the blueprint of the building is quite another. Those who live by surface action live exhausted, but those who turn inward and understand the power of spiritual cause live in alignment and ease. Take, for example, the man who is constantly broke. He may blame the economy, his employer, or even his upbringing. But until he examines the spiritual blueprint, his beliefs about money, his unconscious affirmations of lack, his resentment or fear, nothing will shift. Florence would have him affirm, "I now draw from the abundance of the spheres my immediate and endless supply." Not because these are magic words, but because the spoken word plants seeds in the spiritual realm, and what is planted spiritually must, by law, bear fruit physically. To say that spiritual reality comes first is not to deny the physical world, but to understand it. It is to see through appearances and recognize that behind every problem is a pattern, and that pattern can be changed. Florence reminded her students that they were not helpless beings tossed about by fate, but powerful creators sculpting reality from invisible substance. When you grasp this truth, you begin to live from the inside out. You no longer wait for conditions to improve before you feel peace or joy. You feel peace and joy first, and conditions obey. She often quoted, "Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you." The kingdom of God is the invisible dimension of spiritual order, and to seek it first is to align yourself with divine truth before you try to take outer action. How often are we tempted to push, to strive, to panic and control, when in truth, a single word spoken in faith can move the entire fabric of reality? Florence taught that what you focus on spiritually, with unwavering clarity and emotion, must eventually appear in the outer world. It may not come when you expect, nor how you expect, but come it must. For spirit is substance, and form is only spirit condensed. You must not confuse delay with denial. The moment you align with divine truth, the manifestation begins its journey toward you. Your only task is to hold the pattern steady. Let this be your new way of seeing. When illness appears, do not declare the sickness, declare divine health. When lack rears its head, do not reinforce it with fear, affirm divine provision. When confusion clouds your mind, do not chase 1,000 opinions, declare that divine wisdom now fills your consciousness. Spiritual declarations are not wishful thinking. They are the laws of heaven spoken into the earth. Florence believed that the spiritual life was not an escape from reality, but the only way to master it. She lived with quiet authority, unshaken by appearances, because she knew the spiritual foundation was unchanging. You too can live this way, not as a victim, not as a reactor to circumstance, but as a builder of causes in the invisible realm. To live this truth is to live in freedom, the freedom to rise above your past, to change your patterns, to speak new conditions into existence. You no longer wait for the world to offer you permission. You begin within. You plant spiritual seeds with intention, you speak words of power, and then you let life rearrange itself around your inner alignment. For it truly happens spiritually first. And now you know where your real work begins. Chapter 2. Your blessings are already here. You have been taught to chase blessings as if they are rewards waiting somewhere in the future. But Florence Scovel Shinn shattered this illusion with a radiant truth. Your blessings are already here. They are not ahead of you, not hidden in a distant tomorrow. They exist now, fully formed in the spiritual realm, waiting only for your recognition and acceptance. This is not hope. It is law. A divine design has been written with your name on it, etched into the invisible ether long before you asked, long before you dreamed. You do not have to beg, barter, or battle for your good. You simply need to align with it. Ephesians 1:3 affirms, "Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, who has blessed us with every spiritual blessing in the heavenly places in Christ." This means your goodness is not something to be earned. It is something to be received. It is not potential. It is actual, but invisible. Florence called it the divine design for your life, the perfect blueprint waiting to be built not by bricks or labor, but by thought, word, and unwavering faith. Your work is not to create your blessings, but to uncover them, to sweep away the dust of doubt and fear that clouds their form. For a minute, picture your life as a field with hidden treasures, abundance, divine love, glowing health, and a rewarding job. These are neither uncommon nor random. They were chosen by God. But you have to dig with spiritual insight, dig with vision, dig with affirmations. God is never too late, Florence wrote. Doubt and fear are the only things standing between man and his deepest desires and his highest goals. Blessings were never absent in her world. They were only misinterpreted. To bring forth what is already yours, you must begin with the word. Not a word of worry, not a word of desperation, but a word of authority. Florence taught her students to speak boldly. "I look with wonder at that which is before me." Why? Because wonder opens the door to revelation. Because expectation quickens what has been delayed. Because when you affirm with joy, your word becomes a magnet drawing spiritual substance into visible form. You are not denied. You are divinely endowed. Say it. Feel it. Let it take root. Declare, "All that is mine by divine right now comes to me in perfect ways, under grace." That one sentence, spoken in complete faith, is more powerful than 1,000 complaints, because it does not plead with life, it commands it. It does not focus on what is missing, it proclaims what is already prepared. Blessings may not always arrive in the package you expect, but they never arrive late. Florence often reminded her students that the divine supply knows no hurry and no delay. The spiritual realm operates in perfect timing, not human urgency. And so, the key is not to worry when things appear slow or silent. The key is to remain in alignment, to keep your heart tuned to the frequency of fulfillment. For when your inner state is ready, your outer life cannot help but match it. When the blessing seems far, do not despair, reaffirm. When the evidence looks bleak, do not shrink, redeclare. Your spiritual inheritance responds to the energy of belief, not the noise of fear. Keep speaking your good into existence. Keep holding the image of your answered prayer. And remember, the blessing is not coming, it is already here. It is your certainty, not your striving, that brings it into view. There is a holy stillness in the knowing that all is well, even when the outer world has not caught up. Florence taught that your intuition will often whisper the arrival of a blessing long before it materializes. Trust those whispers. Trust the inner nudges, the sudden sense of peace, the feeling of quiet assurance. They are signs that your word has taken root and is now drawing its substance from the unseen into the seen. Take time each day to dwell in the feeling of already having received. Close your eyes and see yourself living in the answer to your prayer. Hear the voice of joy. Touch the evidence of fulfillment in your mind's eye. This is not fantasy. It is creative cooperation with divine law. The clearer your vision, the stronger the magnetic pull that draws your good to you. You are not hoping. You are preparing. You are not waiting. You are welcoming. Sometimes your blessings are delayed only because you have not yet accepted them as yours. Florence often reminded her students that we receive not what we want, but what we expect. If you expect a delay, you feed it. If you expect struggle, you deepen it. But if you expect the best, life begins to reorganize itself to deliver it. Replace every inner conversation of doubt with declarations of divine certainty. Speak as one who already holds the promise. So now, as you move forward, speak your blessings aloud. See them clearly. Expect them fully. And above all, know this: the treasure has never been lost. It has always been within reach, waiting for the eyes of faith to see it, the lips of truth to call it, and the heart of gratitude to receive it. Your blessings are not just on the way. They are here. They have been here all along. Chapter 3. Faith, your anchor in the unseen. Faith is not blind. It sees with a deeper vision. It reaches through the fog of appearances and anchors itself in the unshakable foundation of spiritual truth. Florence Scovel Shinn declared that faith is the bridge between the invisible and the visible, the golden thread that binds the spiritual blueprint to its material expression. Without faith, the finest affirmations fall flat, and the most beautiful visions never rise beyond imagination. But with faith, mountains move, doors open, and the impossible bows before the inevitable. Faith is not merely believing in something good. It is knowing, quietly, confidently, unshakably, that your good already exists in the unseen. It is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen, as the scriptures affirm. In Shinn's world, faith was not something to strive for. It was a muscle to be exercised, a habit to be cultivated, a spiritual law to be trusted. The moment you speak your word, the moment you align your desire with divine law, the manifestation begins. It may not yet be visible, but it is already real. To walk in faith is to walk as though your blessing were already yours. Florence often reminded her students to act as if, not in pretense, but in power. If you knew your answer was already guaranteed, how would you think, feel, walk, speak? That is the energy faith demands. Not desperation, not pleading, but calm, grateful expectancy. You do not beg the sun to rise. You simply prepare your day in its light. You do not force the flower to bloom. You simply trust the seed once it has been planted. But what of the delays? What of the moments when all signs point to failure, when the outer world contradicts the inner vision? It is in these moments that faith is tested and revealed. Florence taught that every challenge is a test of alignment, not a punishment, not a denial, but an opportunity to hold firm in the unseen until the seen catches up. She would say, if one asks for success and prepares for failure, he will get the situation he has prepared for. To activate your faith is to prepare boldly, speak decisively, and believe without wavering. Florence gave her students affirmations that lifted them out of fear and into knowing. I have a perfect work in a perfect way. I give perfect service for perfect pay. These were not hollow repetitions. They were spiritual commands. Each word released with faith became a creative force, charged with divine energy, reshaping the invisible matrix of life. Gratitude is the soil in which faith flourishes. When you give thanks for what you have not yet seen, you are signaling to the universe that your trust is complete. Florence often advised her students to end their affirmations with, "I give thanks that it is already done." Why? Because thanksgiving is a demonstration of spiritual certainty. It is the language of faith in full bloom. And yet, faith is not a performance. It does not require perfection. It only asks for consistency. Even mustard seed faith, said Jesus, could move mountains. What matters most is not how much faith you have, but how steady it is. Florence emphasized that doubt cancels the order. You cannot speak a word of power in the morning and follow it with a day of fear and confusion. Faith must be protected like a flame in the wind, guarded, fed, and kept alive through attention and intention. Faith is the courage to stand still while the world races in panic. It is the strength to remain calm in the eye of uncertainty. Florence taught that when appearances scream lack, danger, or delay, the soul must stand rooted in the invisible promise. That promise is not based on probability. It is grounded in divine law. What is spiritually true must ultimately become physically visible, so long as the mind holds its image without distortion. Doubt is a thief. It sneaks in dressed as logic, clothed in the garments of realism. But realism, Florence would remind us, is often just fear given a polished name. The spiritual realist is not one who conforms to current conditions, but one who reshapes them with conviction. You must dare to look at emptiness and declare fullness. You must face silence and hear the echo of your answered prayer. Faith is also a movement. While it begins in thought, it does not stay there. It calls you to act in ways that demonstrate trust in unseen reality. Florence encouraged inspired action, not frantic effort, but confident steps that match the tone of your vision. If you're praying for work, prepare your tools. If you're calling in love, open your heart. If you're affirming prosperity, handle money with respect and generosity. Faith does not wait passively. It prepares. It participates. Let every step you take be soaked in expectation. When you write, write as if the world is waiting for your voice. When you walk into a room, enter as if blessings have gone ahead of you. When you make a decision, make it as if you are guided by infinite wisdom, because you are. Florence believed that nothing was too small or too large for faith to touch, because all things begin and end in spirit. When results seem slow, return to the inner altar. Speak again the truth that anchored you. I cast this burden on the Christ within, and I go free. Then go about your day, not as one who is hoping, but as one who already possesses. The vibration of ownership calls to the manifestation like a beacon in the night. So let your faith be fierce. Let it be your invisible armor and your silent song. Let it rise above evidence and appearance, and let it hold you steady until the manifestation appears. For in Florence Scovel Shinn's world, and now in yours, faith is not the means to an end. It is the very ground you walk on, the breath you speak with, and the power by which the invisible becomes inevitable. Chapter 4. Dealing with life spiritually first. There is a sacred reversal required for those who wish to live in alignment with spiritual law. Before you react outwardly, respond inwardly. Florence Scovel Shinn taught that we must deal with every condition in the spiritual realm first, where the true cause lies, before attempting to handle it in the world of effects. It is not that we ignore the material facts, but that we refuse to be governed by them. In her words, Man's only enemies are within himself. The world has trained us to fix problems with force, to address symptoms rather than causes, and to act quickly when we feel threatened. But the spiritual student learns a different approach. When confronted with illness, financial struggle, relational discord, or confusion, the spiritually attuned soul retreats, not in fear, but in faith, not into avoidance, but into alignment. There, within the silence of divine connection, the real work is done. Florence described life as a game, and to win this game, one must know and obey its spiritual rules. One such rule is this: outer conditions are projections of inner states. If your environment feels chaotic, it is a reflection of internal dissonance. If delays and difficulties persist, they are often the echo of mental resistance, fear, or false belief. The wise do not battle the mirror, they change the expression. Consider a woman who came to Florence, overwhelmed with anxiety over a court case. Her first instinct, like most, was to gather lawyers, prepare arguments, and brace herself for battle. But Florence gave her a different prescription. Go into your inner court, release the situation to divine mind, speak the word of justice, then rest. The woman, though skeptical, obeyed. She affirmed repeatedly, "There is no competition on the spiritual plane. What is rightfully mine comes to me through divine law." In the end, the case resolved in her favor, with a grace no strategy could have predicted. When we approach life spiritually first, we stop being victims of circumstance and become stewards of causation. This is not magical thinking, it is metaphysical reality. Your thoughts are creative, your emotions magnetic, and your words catalytic. Florence emphasized the power of the spoken word because it plants the seeds of experience. She would say, "Man must prepare for the thing he has asked for, though he may not see even the slightest sign of it." The spiritual approach begins with recognition. You must first recognize that the condition in front of you is not the source, it is the surface. If you are ill, you must recognize that health is your spiritual truth, and illness is the shadow of unbalanced thought or fear. If you are in lack, recognize that divine abundance has never left you. It only needs to be claimed and allowed. If you are in confusion, recognize that divine wisdom is your inheritance, and clarity is only a shift in consciousness away. Then comes the alignment. This is where prayer, affirmation, and visualization become tools, not to manipulate outcomes, but to bring your mind into harmony with what is already true in spirit. Florence taught her students to affirm, not from desire, but from possession. One does not say, "I will be healed," but "divine health is mine now." One does not beg for love, but declares, "I am a perfect expression of divine love, and I attract my perfect counterpart under grace." Action follows alignment, and here is where many misunderstand spiritual practice. To act spiritually does not mean to avoid all physical action. It means to take action that is inspired, guided, and free from fear. When you address the inner first, your outer actions become divinely choreographed. You move with grace, speak with wisdom, and find yourself in the right place at the right time. This is why Florence so often said, "Never do today what intuition says to leave until tomorrow." Because intuition is the voice of divine timing. When you act prematurely out of panic or pressure, you step outside the rhythm of spiritual law. But when you wait, listen, and move only when the way is clear within, you walk the path of miracles. Florence believed that each person has a divine design, and that when one aligns with this design, life becomes not a battle, but a dance. Dealing with life spiritually first is about remembering that you are not here to fix a broken world. You are here to radiate divine order into it. Your peace is a remedy. Your calm is a solution. Your faith is a seed. The moment you feel resistance or fear, take it as a sacred cue. Go inward, speak your truth, realign. Declare the spiritual reality you wish to see, then return to life not as a beggar, but as a bringer of divine energy. You do not need to force outcomes. You need only to become the vibration of what you desire. So the next time a problem arises, do not rush to fix it. Rise to meet it, not with panic, but with presence, not with strategy, but with stillness. Go into the sanctuary of your spirit, and there, before a single thing changes outwardly, everything will already be made new. For he or she who handles life spiritually first, handles it best. Chapter 5. Words and Thoughts. Your Spiritual Instruments. Florence Scovel Shinn taught that your word is your wand, not as a metaphor, but as law. Words are not idle decorations. They are living tools of creation, powerful enough to carve the contours of your reality. In her world, to speak was to direct energy, to command substance, to impress upon the invisible. Thoughts are seeds, but it is the spoken word that plants them into the fertile soil of the universe. The moment a word is spoken with conviction, it sets into motion the unseen machinery of divine intelligence. Most people speak without awareness. They use words to describe what is, to react to what they see, to lament what they fear. But Florence insisted that the spiritual student must learn to speak what they desire to see, not what they dread. The game of life, she said, is a game of boomerangs. Our thoughts, deeds, and words return to us sooner or later with astounding accuracy. That which you release into the world through speech will inevitably find its way back to you, amplified. There is a vibratory charge embedded in every phrase you utter. A complaint is not simply an expression of dissatisfaction, it is an affirmation of lack. A sarcastic remark is not just humor, it is the quiet rehearsal of cynicism. But likewise, a word of faith is an invocation of power. A word of love is an invitation to harmony. Florence emphasized that your words should be spoken with intention, precision, and alignment to the truth. Idle chatter, especially when rooted in fear or gossip, is like sowing weeds in the garden of your manifestation. She told the story of a woman who continuously affirmed, "I always miss my train," and lo and behold, she always did. Florence corrected her, instructing her to instead affirm, "I never miss my train. Infinite Spirit guides and perfects my timing." Within days the pattern reversed. Life began to reflect her new script. That which was spoken with faith was received in form. Words are amplified by the emotional tone beneath them. This is where thoughts and words combine into spiritual instruments. Thought gives direction. Emotion gives power. You cannot affirm prosperity and secretly believe in lack. The vibration of your true belief will overpower your hollow words. But when word and thought are united in conviction, they become unstoppable forces. Florence warned, "Fear and impatience darken the road. Faith and love will open the way." Visualization is thought clothed in an image. Affirmation is thought clothed in sound. Both are languages of the soul. Both are instruments by which the spirit expresses itself into matter. The wise spiritual student uses both, not in desperate effort, but in joyful practice. Florence often encouraged her students to speak their word in the morning and release it in peace, knowing it had already reached its target. Like sending a sealed letter to the divine postal system, you don't need to resend it every hour. You simply prepare to receive the reply. The tongue, Florence taught, can be a sword or a staff. a sword when used to cut down, to criticize, to wound, a staff when used to uplift, to declare, to bless. She implored her students to bless everything, bless their money, their relationships, their health, their work, even their so-called enemies, because blessing affirms unity, and unity is the signature of divine power. I bless the past and forget it, she would say. I bless the present and thank it. I bless the future and welcome it. Words spoken aloud have a deeper impact because they echo not only in the mind, but in the field around you. They reverberate through your body, into your environment, into the very ethers where divine substance is molded. Florence called it the law of vibration. Speak a word in fear, and the vibration disrupts. Speak a word in love, and the vibration harmonizes. Your environment becomes a living mirror of the vibrations you sustain. So speak what you wish to live. Declare it before you see it. Praise it before it appears. Florence wrote, "Do not neglect the day of small things. Affirmations must be continued until they are established in consciousness and become a habit pattern. Your first affirmation may feel empty. Your second may feel forced. But by the 10th, by the 100th, the soil will begin to crack and the first shoots of your new world will rise." A woman once told Florence, "My words don't seem to work." Florence replied, "Are you watering them with doubt? Are you cancelling them with fear?" Words are spiritual contracts. You must honor them by behaving as though they are already fulfilled. If you affirm success but continue to act like failure is inevitable, you are spiritually double-minded. But when your words are backed by belief, your actions will follow in kind. Each morning, before the world has a chance to pull you into reaction, speak your world into being. Affirm divine order. Affirm spiritual strength. Declare peace, prosperity, and protection. Florence's students would say, "Every day, in every way, I am guided, guarded, and supplied." And life would respond in kind. So now, take up the wand. Speak not to describe the storm, but to calm it. Speak not to echo limitation, but to declare liberty. Use your words and thoughts not as commentary, but as command. Shape your day, shape your life. In the divine game, Florence revealed, the one who speaks truth with love and power is the one who rules their world. Chapter 6. Letting Go and Letting God, the Power of Spiritual Surrender. There comes a moment in every spiritual journey when the work is not in doing more, but in releasing what weighs the soul. After you have spoken the word, affirmed the truth, aligned your thoughts and actions with divine law, there remains one final and vital step: surrender. Florence Scovel Shinn, in her gentle yet commanding way, urged her students again and again to cast the burden on the Christ within and go free. For without surrender, faith becomes struggle, and without release, manifestation becomes resistance. To surrender is not to give up, it is to give over, to cease clutching at control and instead place the situation, the outcome, the timing, into the hands of infinite intelligence. This is not laziness nor passivity. It is the highest form of trust. It is to say, I have done my part. Now I let the greater wisdom take over. In Florence's world, letting go was not the end of the creative process. It was the seal of it. Just as a letter must be dropped in the mailbox before it can be delivered, your word must be released in faith before the universe can act upon it. Many seekers hold tightly to their affirmations, revisiting them with urgency and fear. But Florence taught that this cancels the very work they have done. "Fear and impatience darken the road," she said. "Faith and love will open the way." When you repeat an affirmation out of anxiety, you are not reinforcing faith, you are rehearsing doubt. But when you speak it once with confidence and then rest in the knowledge that it is done, you align with spiritual flow. Letting go is a discipline of the heart. It means surrendering your timeline, your expectations, your mental scenarios. It means releasing the need to know how or when. It means accepting that the infinite knows more than you do and that divine timing is not slow. It is perfect. Florence reminded her students that the delay is often not in spirit's response, but in the soul's readiness to receive. By letting go, you signal that you are now ready. One of Florence's students once struggled with attracting financial support. She affirmed daily, visualized constantly, but nothing changed. When Florence asked if she had released the burden, the woman admitted she was obsessing over the outcome. Florence advised her to declare, "I cast this burden of lack on the Christ within, and I go free to receive the abundance that is mine by divine right." Within days, the flow began, because surrender opened the valve that worry had constricted. This is the paradox of power. It is most alive in the relaxed, open soul. The one who has released fear, expectation, and control becomes a clear channel through which divine law can operate. Florence often used the metaphor of wireless transmission. You must not only send the signal, but you must also tune your receiver. And worry detunes you. Impatience distorts the channel. Surrender restores the clarity. Letting go is also a radical declaration of your spiritual identity. It says, "I am not alone, I am not separate, I am guided and governed by a perfect intelligence." It turns the mind from chaos to peace, from urgency to trust. And in that peace, the invisible forces begin to move. Events shift, people call, ideas land, solutions appear. Not through striving, but through spiritual receptivity. This does not mean you do nothing. It means you do what is yours to do, and you leave the rest to divine orchestration. Inspired action will still come, but it will arise from intuition, not panic. Florence was adamant, never act under fear. Wait for the clear inner nudge, then move with confidence. That is how the soul cooperates with spirit. You are not responsible for the orchestration of your miracle. You are responsible for the vibration from which you live. When you let go, you rise into alignment. You declare, "Divine Mind is handling this perfectly." And then you live as if that were already true. Because it is. Letting go is freedom. It is the lifting of invisible weights. It is the unclenching of the fists around your desires so they can finally take flight. It is the softening of resistance so manifestation can land gently in your life. So whatever it is you've been holding, release it now. Say aloud, "I cast this burden on the Christ within, and I go free." Say it again. Feel the exhale in your spirit. Watch the tension fall away from your shoulders. This is your act of power. And in the days that follow, live in expectancy, not in effort. Let every breath affirm, "It is done." Let every step echo, "I trust." Let every action be inspired, not forced. The universe does not respond to panic. It responds to spiritual poise. This is what Florence Scovel Shinn knew, that letting go is not the end of spiritual work. It is its completion. It is the final stroke of the artist's brush, the last note of the sacred song. It is the moment when heaven is invited to do what only heaven can. So let go, and let God. Conclusion: living from the inside out. You have reached the final doorway, and yet nothing ends here. What has unfolded before you is not just knowledge. It is the return of your authority. The journey through these teachings is a journey inward, where real transformation occurs. Florence Scovel Shinn's words were never meant to be admired from a distance. They were meant to be lived, to walk them, to speak them, to become them. Now you know the outer world is the echo, the inner world is the voice, the visible is the reflection, the invisible is the source. Life does not happen to you, it happens through you. You are not the product of circumstance, you are the shaper of it. And the instrument through which this shaping occurs is spiritual law. Thought, word, feeling, faith. These are not accessories to life. They are life. Invisible currents of creative force flowing from you to the field and back again. You have learned that everything begins in the spiritual realm, that blessings do not need to be chased, they are already yours. That faith is the bridge between the unseen and the seen. That peace, healing, abundance, love and purpose are not distant prizes, they are your spiritual inheritance. All that is required is that you accept, align, and act from the truth that they already exist. To live from the inside out is to make your spiritual reality your primary reality. It is to be unmoved by appearances because you are rooted in principle. It is to see a storm and know that above the clouds the sun still shines. It is important to remember that the moment you change the pattern within, the form without must shift. This is not theory, it is spiritual architecture, invisible scaffolding waiting for you to build with consciousness. Florence Scovel Shinn never promised a life free of difficulty, but she promised that you would never be powerless again, that once you understood how to deal with life spiritually, you could walk through anything with grace. And now that wisdom belongs to you, when fear visits, meet it with a word of truth. When doubt whispers, silence it with an affirmation of certainty. When life challenges you, don't descend into reaction, ascend into declaration. Say aloud, even in the face of contradiction, "This too shall pass. Divine order is at work. All is well." And it will be. As you rise each day, remember that you are not starting from scratch. You are stepping into a world that already exists in the spiritual. Your only task is to call it forth. Not by willpower, but by spiritual alignment. Not through force, but through faith. Not by pushing life, but by allowing it to flow through you, as you. You are not separate from the power that creates worlds. You are its instrument. You are its voice. You are its beloved expression. So speak the word. Think the truth. Feel the joy before it arrives. Give thanks before the evidence. Walk in the end before the beginning unfolds. And as Florence would say, I now prepare for the fulfillment of my heart's desire. I show active faith. This is your time to show it, to live it, to let the unseen become the inevitable. For everything you seek has already been spoken into the ethers. It is waiting, not for a better time, not for a better version of you, but for the moment you say, yes, yes, to the truth, yes, to the law, yes, to the life you were always meant to live. Now go and live from the inside out. I give thanks that the divine plan of my life now comes to pass, under grace and imperfect ways.